We discussed the ride that made me with Justin Martin on episode 383 of the Unofficial Universal Orlando podcast. Hey everyone, it's Lee. I am here. I have benched Tracy, Darren and Chris. It is not just me, as you heard in the intro. I have a special guest, former Thinkwell and Universal Creative employee, Mr. Justin Martin. Hey Justin.
How are you? Thanks for having me on.
It is good to have you on again. I will say again, for those of you who don't know, you may remember Justin from back on episode 308. I can't believe it was that long ago.
Yeah.
Where we had you on to talk about your work on Volcano Bay. And as we have discussed offline, Justin, Tracy and I got to have a tour of Volcano Bay about 6 weeks ago, I think it was at this point. It seems like a lifetime ago. That park is stunning.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm super proud of it. I've my whole bathroom is decked out in concept art and whatnot of Volcano Bay. It's my little homage to that park, having been able to work on it. But I'm so glad that you guys got over there to see it, and I thought it was a real nice place as well.
Well, we've discussed, Tracy and I aren't really water park people. After coming out of that tour, Tracy was like, we need to come here for a proper day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think even on my, when I was on back on, you said 308, when I was put on the project, had the same thing of like, I'm not really a water park person. It's kind of a bummer that I'm going to work on a project that I don't care for water parks. And then I just became a water park person. My family begs me to go to that park every time we go to Orlando. We got to go to Volcano Bay. And I think it's not even the fact that that their son or brother worked on it. Just more that they love the atmosphere of the place. So
it's absolutely
a common thread. Yeah,
it's absolutely gorgeous. I mean, Tracy's a budding photographer. She had a field day in there with her camera. She said she could have spent all day just taking pictures. And it is, I think we've talked about on the show before, it's such a small footprint that it was put in, yet when you are in there, it feels huge.
Yeah. I think I was pretty impressed, having only been on that project on the Blue Sky concept phase, but kind of going in there after it had opened on its own, kind of just seeing like, wow, they really just killed it when it came to hiding. It was I-4 that's right next to the park, and obviously you have some issues with being up on the water towers, but that's the fact of life.
Yes.
But when you're sitting there with a margarita or a very fruity drink in hand, sitting on a lounge chair, the world just fades away. You're in Volcano Bay.
It's that thing as well of being where they've crammed it in, that it affects the whole resort. So you see it from I-4, you can see it from the hotels. If you're staying in, I'm hoping at some point we can get one of those Cabana Bay, Volcano Bay view rooms, because those floor-to-ceiling windows looking out over Volcano Bay are just to die for. Yeah,
we were actually, it was very fun. I was just down there last week for a work trip with my new company, and we were driving down I-4 towards the direction of Volcano Bay, and everybody in the car was like, "What is that?" And I was like, "We will have to go sometime, and I will show you."
But it is, you can't. There aren't any superlatives that don't fit. It is absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, thank you. And the team that took it far further than I could have with the project. They deserve all the accolades for that, and but just happy to be a small little cog in that wheel that brought that park to life.
Awesome, cool. Right, so going on to the rides that made me. If you haven't heard the earlier ones, I'm trying to think who I've had on at this point. We've had Adam Bizark, Julie Zimmerman, Andy DiGenova. I'm missing someone. Jason Sorrell. I think that's it.
These guys are way too good for me.
That is not true. You're all in good company. But if you haven't listened to them, seriously go back and listen to them. They are awesome. But the task that I gave them and Justin himself is to come up with the 3 attractions that have had the biggest impact on him as a person and also his career in theme parks, and discuss why it's not about the attractions, it's about why it's had such an impact on you as a person, Justin.
Mm-hmm,
do you have your 3?
I think I do. I have 3 and then some, I think.
Right. Well, I want to tease this out a little bit. So I want your 3rd one to be the one that's probably had the biggest impact on you, if that's
absolutely
possible. Awesome.
Done and done.
Cool. Right. Well, let's get on with it then. So what's your first one then, Justin?
So number one, even though it's a Universal podcast, I'm going to
That's
jump
fine.
over to one of the Disney parks, whether it be Disneyland or the Magic Kingdom, and really just start with the Haunted Mansion.
Yep.
That one, I was lucky enough to grow up and be able to go to Disney World. Being from New Jersey, we went about once a year, so that was kind of our big family trip. And it started when I was 3 or 4. And my mom always talks about that when I was about 5 or 6, I would come home and she'd ask, what was your favorite part of the trip? And I would say, I liked Winnie the Pooh, or I liked Pirates of the Caribbean or something. But it was that I just wanted to work for Disney. And at the time it was, I didn't know that was a thing you could do, and not working in the parks, but, designing everything that I saw. And I loved everything about the parks, and eventually then Universal Parks and beyond. But the one thing I had never experienced, because I was just too afraid, even after all those trips, was the Haunted Mansion. I would see my mom go, my dad go. We brought our aunt and uncle once, and they went on it. I thought they were just the craziest. I was like, it's the Haunted Mansion. Why would you go in there? It's got to be scary, regardless of if I'm at a Disney park or not. And then one day, I think my mom bribed me with ice cream or something. And she's like, if you go on, you're going to like it, I promise. Yeah. And I went in, and it absolutely changed everything for me. Obviously, as we know, it is not a scary attraction. No. But instead, it is just filled with so much magic and illusion and gorgeous storytelling. And I think it's definitely influenced my career in the sense of, one of the other things that'll be on my list, and even to where I am now, I work for a company called Meow Wolf, and we're here in Santa Fe, and we are kind of this just weird mix of the what's on our website is that we create immersive art experiences that transport audiences to fantastic realms, and basically with that we just we design these just crazy, weird, but beautiful spaces that you walk through, and you can feel, touch, sense, all of these things. And I think that was what I loved about the Haunted Mansion, is not only did I just get on a little doom buggy and ride through an abandoned or ghost-filled mansion, but I got to walk through it a little bit. I walked through the graveyard, and then I, got into the foyer and got into the stretching room, and then poof, you're out, and now you're in this basement. And then there's a vehicle that you have to get on, and that's going to take you the rest of the way. It's and I think that's just so, it's just nuts almost when you think about it. Like, it's a multi-step attraction, and we're starting to see that obviously come up a little bit more. I know there's a ride that just opened in Transworld something. I can't remember the full name. It's overseas in, I believe, Malaysia area. But they opened one based on Pacific Rim, similar concept.
Oh, really?
You get on a vehicle and off. Yeah. And then obviously in just less than a month now, we've got Rise of the Resistance opening, which they've teased as kind of a similar thing. If you get on a vehicle, off a vehicle. And I think that's just kind of where we're seeing things go. And obviously here at Meow Wolf, it's a whole walking experience, but it's kind of a, you choose your own adventure kind of experience. And I think that's what I loved about it, is it just felt so tangible to me. Obviously the music, how can you not get Grim and Ghost, not stuck in your head, but exactly. It's fantastic, and it's just eerie enough and spooky enough. And I've always joked as a Slytherin myself, I've got a little bit of a dark side in me. So I've always been drawn to those spooky things, that Tower of Terror, just where it was just spooky enough to kind of just give it that a little Halloween feel, no matter when you were visiting. But yeah, and I always wanted to grow up and I wanted to do the college program for Disney and work in the Haunted Mansion, just because I thought they had the coolest costumes.
I'm sure it wasn't in the Florida heat at that point.
No, not at all. Especially after working there at Splash Mountain and getting to be in shorts and kind of a t-shirt, you're like, this is far better than dress pants and the tux. But yeah, I just thought that was the coolest thing, and you get to be creepy and spooky to guest all day. That's just the coolest thing. And then it's kind of to even further it a little bit, I was lucky enough, I went to school at Savannah College of Art and Design, and every year we would do a trip. We had to apply for it, kind of be selected by the professors, and we would be sent down to Disney Imagineering. It was us and a group of 10 people, basically. And Gary Landrum, who is kind of their head of, really, he keeps all the story. We kind of call him the keeper of the story, I guess, for Disney. And he knows just everything about story in the parks. And he kind of toured us around for a week and showed us just not only what the stories of the attractions were, but how things worked. And one of the stops we got to make was we got to do a 4 a.m. tour of the Haunted Mansion with the lights on. And we just walked through the whole thing and got to go down into the ballroom and just see how it all works. And that was just mind blowing. That these effects that are so simple, like Pepper's Ghost and one, are just stunning. And people walk out of that ride today. There are people coming off this ride right now as we record this podcast that do not know how half of those things are done. And that is just the magic of that ride. That and on top of that ride is 30, 40, 50 maybe years old. I think this year is its 50th anniversary. And it is still just like a consistent, 30 plus minute wait in any park around the world. So that thing just had such an influence on me. And now when I was still living in Los Angeles, I would go down to Disneyland every couple weeks or so with some friends. And we always had okay, if it's busy, we have 3 rides we got to get on. It was Pirates, Indiana Jones, and the Haunted Mansion. Because we were just those are the 3 perfect rides in this park. And I still think, no matter how many changes they do to the ride, it still is unbreakable and still a perfect attraction.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the thing when you look at it as well, like you say, that Pepper's Ghost effect in the ballroom, they've gone in and they have retrofitted some of the technology in it, yet that still remains to this day because it is that simple, but it is still that good.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously everybody has kind of their favorite of how you get into the house itself. Some people prefer the Florida one. Myself, definitely prefer the one in California, and even been lucky enough to go on the one in Paris as well, Phantom Manor.
Yes.
A slightly different storyline, but still just actually a little bit more spooky, but definitely that still same vibe of, no matter how you kind of tell the story between that, even Mystic Manor, even though it's not really in the same vein of the Haunted Mansion, still kind of same vibe of a mystical house. There's just something about that kind of a story that just grabs people. And if you show them some really cool effects and have a real catchy song along with it, you're gonna grab anybody's attention, really.
Yeah, it is. It's you are not the first person to have this on their list, and I dare say you won't be the last.
No, I don't think so. And that ride has truly stand the test of time and is going to continue to inspire future Imagineers, Universal creative team members, and artists beyond. Just it's a stunning attraction.
Like you say as well, when we're moving into a direction in theme parks now, it's a double-edged sword. I'm still not sure whether I like it or I don't, but everything is being based on IPs now. And for something like the Haunted Mansion to still be as popular as it is when it wasn't based on an intellectual property is, again, testament to how good that attraction is.
Yeah, I am blanking on the, for some reason, I'm trying to look it up actually right now. The 2 main designers that are really credited with the attraction itself.
Was it Rolly Crump?
I believe yes, it was Rolly Crump. And I think Harper Goff maybe as well. I was just watching the Disney Plus Imagineering. Claude Coates, that's who.
Oh yes.
And I think that was just it agreed with you on everything's going IP based. And you do have this one ride that is really was built without IP. It created its own IP, and it was really these 2 guys and their team as well that are kind of just creating these little vignettes. It's kind of the same as Pirates of the Caribbean. It's there's little vignettes that you see into the world, the story that's going on. And to be honest, I don't really know if anybody really knows what the whole story, I myself included, of the Haunted Mansion is. You kind of know that there's a guy that was your ghost host, there's someone hanging in the foyer, there's a bride, and obviously a lot of that I think is attributed to the ride has had different upgrades and changes over the time. The story has maybe been muddled a little bit, but I think that's actually almost a little bit of the magic to it, is you kind of can create your own story, and you can kind of develop what you want the story to be. I always quote my my old creative director, Dave Cobb, and he did a presentation once, and I think it might be on YouTube somewhere. But he did something. His quote was, and I'm probably going to butcher it, is you can't have your own theme park, but you can make the theme park your own. Something along those lines. And I think that was just that line has stuck with me no matter what job I've been at. And it's really the idea of it doesn't matter. None of us are going to be able to own a theme park. That's just not a possibility. But if you can find ways to make that park that exists your own, that adds a whole second level of magic to it. If you can create what you think maybe the story of the Haunted Mansion is, no one's going to tell you you're wrong. That's for you to decide what you think it's going to be. The pieces are there to play with in your big sandbox, and to kind of play around with it. And I think with the little vignettes that were created along the attraction, you kind of can piece together what you want your own little storyline to be. And even if you don't want to create a storyline, there's just some fun little moments. Yeah. It's a beautiful blend of comedy, but also a little bit of like dark humor, really. You've got a guy trying to pull himself out of a coffin at like a wake or a viewing. And it's just weird and creepy. And then on top of that, even to dive a little bit into a little bit more on the Haunted Mansion Holiday out in Disneyland is just this might be a controversial opinion. I love it just as much as the original attraction. And that was like obviously taking an IP and then overlaying a non-IP attraction, but still keeping the elements that make the Haunted Mansion beautiful about not being an IP attraction, if that makes any sense. And I think that was just that ride is I look forward to riding that every single year that I get to go on it. And it's just, finding new ways to remake an attraction for an audience that might not resonate with the old attraction, if that's even possible. Yeah. But it kind of just, gives you another reason to go and explore and see a new story being told in the mansion, really. I just adore that attraction so much.
It's very much that, being big Horror Nights fans, it's that gateway attraction into sort of spooky stuff. I've spoken to a lot of people where that was like their first sort of introduction into something that's a little bit out of their comfort zone. So you definitely find that people who end up being sort of theme park haunt fans have got that initial taste of it through the Haunted Mansion.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. That's exactly what happened with me. I was growing up, I was like, nope, no scary things, no scary movies, no scary haunted houses. Like, as I said earlier, I had to be coaxed in to go into the Haunted Mansion. And now I just eat that stuff up. I go to, I'm not a big, like, super scary, like, intense horror kind of fan, but obviously Horror Nights I love. Got to do Not Scary Farm this year. There's a company out in Los Angeles that does immersive theater haunt kind of stuff, Delusion.
Yes.
If anybody's out there, that's an incredible experience.
Are they the guys that did? No, I'm gonna get this wrong because there's that many out there. Are they the guys that did? Is it the Blue Blade?
Yes. The last one I believe was the Blue Blade, and the one before was the first one I experienced, which was his Crimson Queen, and they basically just rent out abandoned mansion in Los Angeles every year, and they develop a story to take place through that mansion using just wire special effects and other effects as well. And it's all walk through. They can touch you. It's a little bit more intense than your typical Halloween Horror Nights, but at its core, it's a story-driven, spooky thing. And I think that's, Haunted Mansion. It all goes back to that. It's a spooky, story-based experience. Horror Nights, Sleep No More in in New York is another example of that. A beautiful walk through, kind of spooky, but not intense by any means. But I think it really just opened up that gateway door of spooky storytelling experiences. And I think it's a whole nother world in this themed entertainment industry that sometimes maybe gets a bad name just because it's just Halloween, it's just scary. But there's so much beautiful storytelling being told on that side of the industry. And I think a lot of it all just definitely could turn right back around and be pointed to the Haunted Mansion.
Definitely. Cool. Well, that wasn't a surprise. I think I expected. I think usually when I get guests on here, I know that you're only the fifth. I usually expect there will be either a Pirates of the Caribbean or a Haunted Mansion. So you went the Haunted Mansion way.
It was Pirates was the other one. I was just like, it was one or the other.
I mean, how can you not? They are like. They are the godfathers of theme park attractions.
Exactly.
Yeah. So moving on to your second one, Justin.
So hopefully this one will surprise everybody a little bit more. This one is in Islands of Adventure. I think you might have an idea of maybe where it's going.
Possibly.
And I walked by this attraction countless times before I went on it. Similar vein. It has a lot of similar things to the Haunted Mansion, I feel. And I can't believe I just didn't go on it sooner because I adore it so much. And I don't think too many people will have this on their list, but it's Poseidon's Fury. In
Wow.
the Lost Continent. Yeah.
Yes. Now, funnily enough, when I spoke to Andy yesterday, Mr.
Yeah.
DeGenova, and he and I told him I was having you on the show, he went, be prepared for him to gush about Poseidon's Fury. And I was like, okay, I thought he was joking.
No, I absolutely adore Poseidon's Fury. I will put the caveat in early that yes, I understand it is very dated and could definitely use an upgrade. If Universal wants to bring me back to Universal Creative to upgrade it, I will do it. It is just a dream project of mine. But yeah, Poseidon's Fury. It is just. You come around that corner from even Seuss Landing, and then on your right hand side you've got that giant hand holding the trident, and then you just have this like crazy facade that is sitting right out there. It is just monstrous. Like obviously Hogwarts Castle is gorgeous, spectacular, all those superlatives. But there's just something about this thing that is just like, what the heck is in there? And nobody ever seems to know what's in there. And sometimes that means they just don't go on it.
Yeah.
If you are listening and you've not been on Poseidon's Fury, I cannot urge you enough to get in there. Partially because I am just so afraid that they'll just get rid of it one day due to a lack of popularity. So keep Poseidon's alive. Poseidon's really, to get into it. The things that really cross over, and you'll kind of see a trend in a lot of the stuff that I love. Again, it's that walkthrough experience.
Yes.
I think there's something that when you can touch the walls around you, you can feel the ground under your feet, you can smell it, when all those senses get put into play, I think that is what creates the most authentic and true immersive experience. It feels real and tangible, and that's what, for me at least, kind of just brings you into, whether it be an IP world or in this case of Poseidon, it's kind of just, it's a mythical story, and I think that's I think having an experience you don't always have to ride through is something really important.
Yeah.
You can still enjoy and be told an incredible story just by walking through something. Narrative storytelling doesn't mean you have to sit on a ride. Obviously, I think that's why we all pay the big money to go to a Universal or a Disney, is to get on these high-tech rides and kind of experience them. But I think in a park that is so ride heavy, like any park really, I think it's so valuable to have an experience that you can still be surrounded by a themed experience that is has a narrative to it, has some really incredible special effects. I think once all of that's put in there, it kind of helps, divide up your day a little bit. You can go on Forbidden Journey, Spider-Man, E.T., all those other things. And then, I'm going to go on this ride and I get to walk through it. This is a little bit different. It kind of just cleanses your palate a little bit after riding stuff all the time. I think on top of that, there's something so just awesome about having a live performer.
Definitely.
Taylor, it brings that human element into the whole experience. You can, there's always, in that first chamber when you go in there, Taylor is always asking somebody, where are you from?
Yep.
And then that kind of person kind of becomes almost the comedic punchline for a couple of the jokes throughout the rest of your experience. But I have not been that person, but even just seeing that person connect with the actor playing Taylor is definitely a moment that they won't forget, because now they're a part of the story. At no other point are you brought into into a narrative like that, because you're interacting with the person, quote unquote, that's really a part of the ride, or the attraction in this case. And then obviously the water tunnel, how it is so cool.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, when the real cheesy projection of I always forget her name, but the goddess that appears, and she's telling you, no, I can't take you out, but I could take you deeper into the temple. And the music is building, the floor kind of shakes beneath your feet, the steam kind of pumps out from that door, the door interlocks and slides away, the strobe light goes off and the water comes over. How can you not just be like jaw on the ground? It's like, what have I just walked into here? And you get to then like, oh, we're gonna walk through this thing, and you kind of get that little bit of mist as you're walking through. In my case, my glasses fog up halfway through, so I can't see.
Yeah, Tracy's the same.
Yeah. And then obviously, like, the water tunnel is cool, but you haven't seen the final room there, where, spoiler alert, the flash goes off and the walls just raise up around you. Yeah, and you're just now all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, I was in one room, now I'm in another room. And then the whole that whole finale scene takes place, and then the lights go off again, and then you're back to where you started. Like, it is just the effects that are pulled off in there are spectacular. Again, would love to see some of the dialogue upgraded and not as cheesy, and some of the projections. I think, but I think at its bare bones, I think it's a real spectacular attraction, and that can I'm very hyped, if you can't tell, for Rise of the Resistance out at Disney, just because I think that attraction is at some point going to be on many people's list of their top 3 as well, just because of what that ride is going to do. Hopefully. And I think, again, hopefully, exactly. And I think that's kind of what this ride, you can look again to this ride. Scott Trowbridge worked on Islands of Adventure. There is no doubt that guy, as brilliant as he is, did not look to a ride like this or an experience like this when developing what the Rise of the Resistance was going to be. It's again that tangible. You get to walk through, supposedly the hangar bay of a Star Destroyer, and okay, so I'm going to get to feel what does that feel like? I've only seen it on the big screen, and what does it smell like, and all that other stuff. I think, and on top of that, I never got to experience it, and this could definitely be on many people's top 3 list, is the Star Trek experience in Las Vegas.
Okay.
And I don't know a ton about it. I've seen a few videos about it, but similar kind of experience where you were walking on and I'm also not much of a Star Trek person, so I don't know a ton about it, but you really walk through the hangars and the bridge of, is it the Enterprise?
Yes.
You walk through that, and you were in on the bridge, and you got to sit in the captain's chair. And then, if I remember correctly, things obviously, as any attraction, goes wrong, and then you kind of have to get your way off the ship, more or less. And it was just, I never got to experience it myself, other than seeing it on YouTube. And I believe actually Dave Cobb always talked about it, and he might have even worked on it. I'm not entirely sure. But he always would just rave about it, and we would chat about it because I love Poseidon's, he loves this, and he would always credit the Star Trek experience. Really, it was the grandfather of these immersive walkthrough kind of story-based attractions again. And I think that's just, the more we get of that, where I think if we can get these real high-end attractions where it's a mix of being on a moving vehicle of some kind and also being able to walk through it, I think it just, again, there's, to me, nothing more immersive than something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm excited for what comes, more down this line or in this genre of walkthrough story-based experiences. And then on top of that, just Poseidon's is great, and it definitely has helped inform some decisions for sure that I've made throughout my career in designing different attractions.
It's an interesting one, Poseidon's Fury, because the first time Tracy and I did it was way back in 2004. It wasn't open during the day because we happened to be there when Halloween Horror Nights was started. So for some reason, it was closed during the day, and they only opened it during Halloween Horror Nights.
Oh, interesting.
So our first experience of Poseidon's Fury was at midnight during the opening night of Halloween Horror Nights.
Wow.
And we loved it.
Yeah.
And then when we went back, so we did it every time we went, and then we went in 2015, and that we only went for a week, and we did Horror Nights a lot, and it just never happened that we managed to get into it. So I was determined when we went in October this year that we were going to go and do it. So we did, and I have a differing opinion on it now. I still love it, But it is so the finale scene in like the cavern is so dated. It is untrue.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. The dialogue is very delayed,
The
and
costumes are awful.
Yeah, like it's having lived out obviously in LA for a while and getting to see World of Color, every time I went to Disneyland, and I adore that show. That was just, projection on a mist screen to the next level. So I always kind of am like, this could be so much better. Yeah. And like the bones, kind of like I was saying, they're there for this attraction. I think just really some TLC on it really could just do wonders for an attraction like this.
I mean, you look at like what Universal did this year with the Marathon of Mayhem at Horror Nights, that projection show, which was absolutely amazing.
Exactly, yeah. That thing is an incredible show unto itself. Yeah, and I think just when you get a little bit, I always laugh at the very choreographed. I can't.
Yeah, I don't know what that word choreographized is. That a word?
Yeah, choreographized. Yeah, exactly. You know what I'm going for. But like when they're having Poseidon and Lord Darkonon are having that fight, and it's like fast movement and then slow down as we hit each other's sword, and then like it's just this very blocky kind of choreography. It's kind of just like, all right, yeah, this is kind of, you had me between the water tunnel, and then you had me when the walls just disappeared in this final room, and then you kind of lost me a little bit because it's just almost too cheesy. But yeah, I think I think it'd be cool to just see whether it be animatronics or live actor versions of Poseidon and Darkonon. I think that ride could obviously do for some more live actors. The more of them you have, again, that's just more realistic you're going to make it. Or you also could make a storyline that doesn't involve a good guy and a bad guy, even to an extent. You could rework that whole story again, kind of similar to, in my head, I go to like a Mystic Manor, as I kind of was talking about before. And you could just do that. You've gone into this temple, and just a lot of magical secrets are being unlocked as you go deeper and deeper. And I think you can find ways to keep the real bare bones of the attraction and upgrade it for a future audience. Because there's usually never a line to get into Poseidon. So you usually just wait the one ride cycle of the attraction, and then you kind of get in there. But I would love to see them put a little bit of love into it, and kind of see where it goes from there. But I would hate to lose an attraction like Poseidon. Yes. So because I think it really does have some spectacular value to look to as we design newer and just more souped up attractions.
You're very much on the same page as us. We've lamented on the podcast for years now the loss of team member driven attractions. You look at Universal as a prime example, that you've lost Disaster, you've lost Jaws, those attractions, T2 3D, although Born sounds like it's going to be something along the same lines, but a show or an attraction that is rooted in having an actual team member as part of it, which means every time you go on or ride that attraction or experience, it's going to be slightly different because every actor is going to play that role differently.
Oh, absolutely. And that's even a great point that I haven't really even thought of. But yeah, exactly. We have great movie ride that we've lost over at Hollywood Studios. And that one, you always had, certain jokes, and similar to even Jungle Cruise, you always know, like, when you get off the ride, you go, oh, that skipper was really good, because they had like one or two jokes that were, a little more off script or just a little bit more unique to their spiel, really. Yeah. And I think that's the stuff. Agreed. Like that's what you remember. You remember when a skipper, or when on either Jungle Cruise or Jaws, or when somebody in Disaster made a really funny joke, that kind of just really, it changes your experience. And it can, it could go from being, in the end, Jungle Cruise, you're just on a boat floating by plastic animals. Yeah. There's not much to it, as charming and as it is. But when it kind of is just taken a little bit different in those experiences, you experience the same ride over and over and over again. In the end, Haunted Mansion doesn't really change all too much. That's actually probably a terrible example of it, because that one in Pirates changed the most. But we'll use like Forbidden Journey, for example. That ride doesn't change in its storyline or how you interact with its Spider-Man the same kind of way. But when you do get that moment of, an actor is able to kind of just divert what you've known to become accustomed to with one of these attractions. It really just kind of changes your experience, and it just makes it a little bit more memorable on that visit for you. So I think having some more of those team member driven attractions are definitely valuable to the guest experience overall.
Yeah. I mean, everyone hates Fast and Furious. I'll be honest, I didn't think it was that bad. But anyway,
Sure.
but you've still got those pre-show rooms with the live actors in there, and I do really appreciate that, because we did our first ride on Fast and Furious. We actually did an event at Universal in October, and we had 60 of us in Fast and Furious, like a group of 60 people. We took over an entire bus. We had both pre-show rooms to ourselves. So I think that's sort of played into my opinion of Fast and Furious. But
sure. Absolutely.
Like you say, we had a very personal experience in those pre-show rooms because we had a live actor who knew what was going on and kind of played it up for our group. Whereas if it was just like a pre-show video or something like that, it would have just been exactly the same.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, like, you can see a robot, that looks like a human, but in the end, you still know it's not a real person. Or if you see just something on a screen, obviously you're going to get the likeness of, if it's an IP, you're going to get, like in Fast and Furious, for example, you're going to get, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and all the other stars of that movie, and you're going to be able to use them obviously over and over again. They can't sit there in the pre-show and act for you. And so there's definitely something to be said for that. But I agree 100% that when you can have that connection that's made between the guest or really the performer and the audience, it's just, again, it adds that human element to it that makes it just far more believable, no matter what the ride is at the end.
Yeah.
For me, I'm not the biggest fan of Fast and Furious, but the pre-shows are definitely the best parts, in my opinion, because you have that interaction. It's like, exactly. Oh, cool, I am in a garage, and these guys do work here. Yes. And, and on top of that, even I think that could be played to it is between Kong and Fast and Furious. I don't know if there's too many other rides, Star Wars Land in general. The creative teams for all those projects, costume-wise, even allowed for those team members and cast members to kind of have a little bit of a variation in what they can wear as a costume to kind of give them their own identity. And I think that's just super valuable unto itself, because then they kind of feel like, oh, okay, now it's like they're putting really on their costume to go perform a play with that's their persona once they step into that costume.
Yeah.
So those kinds of things can really just help drive a performance from an actor, and when that performer is working at a high performance level, you're going to just get some really awesome memorable moments from them that the guests are going to come out far more satisfied, regardless of a very cheesy Poseidon's Fury attraction.
Definitely. Well, 2 attractions in. I kind of expected the first one. The second one I should have expected, but I didn't really. So, right, we will take a quick break and then we will be back.
Mouse and Muggle Travel Company, our services are completely free to you. We don't just do Universal. We can do Disney. We can actually do anything. I don't know if anybody knows that. We can do anything. We can book absolutely anything, and it's super easy. We have a website. Just go to mouseandmuggle.com, and we have a link there for a free quote request. You just fill it out. That email comes straight to me, and either Robin or I will handle it, or if we're a little bombarded, then we'll send you off to one of our expert agents. But we'll take good care of you. So reach out to us at any time.
Welcome back, everyone. I am here with Justin Martin, and he has given us his 2 attractions that have had the biggest impact on him, and he's about to give us the final attraction of his rides that made me list. So, Justin, surprise me. What is your number 3?
I don't know if it'll be too much of a surprise, but I think this, we were talking before, being probably one of the younger people that you've had on for this segment, this might play into it a little bit more, but my 3rd and most impactful attraction is Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey.
Awesome.
And I really, this one kind of cheated here a little bit, it's really just Hogsmeade in general. Yeah. Opening day, or opening Hogsmeade, was just an incredible experience to be able to go to the park that year that it opened. I was that summer, I was actually 2010. This is going to show maybe how young I am. I was going into my senior year of high school, and that summer I I had signed up for this thing called pre-college at a school down in Sarasota, Ringling College of Art and Design. And they kind of did this, you kind of would go down for a month or so, and you would take classes, you'd live in the dorms, and it was kind of an experience for you to be able to kind of just get that vibe of what school in college was going to be like, especially at an art school, because it's far different than really just going to your normal university. So went there for my month, was super inspired. This was really the first time I was around people that were like-minded. They were really creative, artistic people. And when my mom came down to pick me up, she's like, all right, we have a few days. What do you want to do? And I was like, we are going to go to Harry Potter World. And the thing with that as well is that summer when I was finished up my finals, that junior year of high school, I remember coming home one day very vividly, and it was the opening day of Wizarding World. So I was watching it on my laptop, the live stream, and I was just like, this thing looks incredible. And I will be 100% honest, I, up till this point, never visited Universal. I was very much I just didn't really, this sounds horrible, didn't really care to see the parks at the time. At the time, they were still, I didn't grow up around Universal movies. I blame my parents. I had to show myself Jaws and E.T. and all these things. They just were like, hey, here's a Disney movie, let's pop it in. And kind of go from there. But when this thing opened, I was like, we are going. And it changed not only my outlook on attractions as a designer, but as just a fan of theme parks, because ever since then, I adore Universal now. Obviously, I've worked for them twice on both coasts, actually. And I just love their parks, their experiences that they provide. And that day was just spectacular, walking into that land. When you go through that arch and the Hogwarts Express is sitting there on your right. Obviously, this is pre-Diagon Alley and the Hogwarts attraction. So yeah, that just, oh my gosh, it was stunning. I remember it was the most packed themed land I've ever been in my life. We got there when they were still doing the timed ticket entry. So I had to get a ticket and then come back a few hours later to get in. And knowing I was only going to be there one day, I was just terrified Forbidden Journey wasn't going to work. I had no idea what was in there, but I was just like, whatever it is, please don't break down. I need to get on this ride. And, obviously having butterbeer for the first time and all of these things, it really, again, when I was down there last week with our work people, they are not very much theme park people. They really hadn't been in any theme parks. This was their first time. And we went into Hogsmeade, and the one thing they were blown away, just as anybody really would be. But the thing I kept kind of telling them was that this land changed theme parks forever. Yeah. It is the reason we have gotten, a Pandora, Star Wars Land, Cars Land, Diagon Alley. All of those things came from the creation of Hogsmeade. It was really a Hail Mary on Universal's part to kind of, jumpstart the parks again. And once they got the rights, they built an incredible land that connected with just so many people, really of all ages. I was going to say my age, but having grown up with the movies, but to be frank, everybody loves. I
am a huge Harry Potter fan, so it's my second home.
Absolutely, and for myself, I read the first couple books, and then I've seen the movies countless times. I enjoy the IP. It's not my favorite. Star Wars is my one true love. But with that, it made me just go oh my gosh, I didn't realize how much I loved these stories of J.K. Rowling's books. And I think that was, it just Ollivander's going in there, and that whole, again, it comes back to a live actor with me, having, that experience that actually, I'll tell a quick story in a second, but having that experience was, just incredible of having, you got to do something that you saw Harry Potter do in the movies. And just actually last week, I had the most incredible magical moment. So if anybody from Universal is listening, I don't remember the team member, but someone in Ollivander's on the Diagon Alley side just made the most incredible experience for us. I was there with 3 or 4 of my coworkers. We went into Ollivander's. The whole show happened. None of us were picked. But as we were walking out, the wand keeper stopped me and my 3 coworkers, and he closed the door, and then he performed a abbreviated version of the show just for the 3 of us. And it was the most magical thing I've ever experienced in my life.
Awesome.
Like, it was just, it was, he did the whole thing of, I was waiting for you guys to come in today. And, I missed you because you were standing in the back in the shadows. And it was just like this, oh my gosh, like, we were singled out to have this incredible experience, that we just saw happen in front of us, but like, it made you feel special. Like, oh, I know you're here, and I know that you guys are just as powerful wizards and witches as well. And you need to get your wand to go off to school with. And it was just the coolest moment. And I think those things are just so memorable. And those things are only done in a place like the Wizarding World.
Justin, you can tell you are so much like me. Because we're supposed to be talking about Forbidden Journey at this point, and you're gushing about the whole land.
Yeah, it's hard not to when you talk about that land. It's just it's perfection.
Yeah, honestly. It really is.
There's it's that beautiful blend of, it is still a theme park land, so you do get things like Flight of the Hippogriff, where obviously you see the track, so it's not hiding that it's a theme park ride. Same way with Hagrid's, but then you also get just like the most mind-blowing attraction in Forbidden Journey. And when you walk up to that castle, you come around that corner, and then you get just that stunning reveal of the castle sitting there. You kind of get a little bit of a taste of it when you're walking down the main road of Hogsmeade. You kind of see the peaks of the tops of the castle, and you're like, all right, I know it's back there, and I'm going to make it there eventually. And I know Scott Trowbridge talks all the time about how really the footprint of that land is not very big.
No.
But by adding that curve and the bend in the land itself, it kind of extends the layout of the street itself, and then it gives you just that real jaw-dropping moment of, dang, there is Hogwarts Castle.
Yeah, it's funny actually. If we go back to Volcano Bay, it's very similar.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, and those are always in mind. That comes back to, similar to a lot of things, go back to the Haunted Mansion and its design. Walt always talked about, you create the weenie at the end of the street, and that's what's going to draw your guests down. And that's really what this is. You kind of give, that the castle, whether it be in Magic Kingdom or here in Hogsmeade, is at the end of the street, but you kind of have to explore a little bit to kind of go find it. Even to the extent of, I didn't tell my coworkers how to get into Diagon Alley, and we walked by it 3 times. I knew obviously how to get into it. They had no clue, and it was just the funniest thing watching them. Like, where is this? And I was like, yeah, it's such a perfect experience that you build a incredibly immersive land, and then you hide it behind a wall, or you build Hogwarts Castle, but you make people kind of have to explore and find it a little bit. It just adds that sense of adventure, and it kind of, again, pushes, live your adventure as a student going to Hogwarts. But yeah, getting into the attraction itself, finally, when you get into there, you walk up to the boars, and it's like, it's a friendly place. It's a place that you're welcome to, but also stuff's gone down in Hogwarts. You've seen the movies. There's trolls that could be roaming around in the corridors, or that there might be a basilisk down in the basement of the castle, and even the boars are a little intimidating.
Yeah.
Like the powerful kind of sculptures, and you feel the weight of them, and you're like, all right, I'm gonna go in. I'm a little spooked, but I'm going to go in regardless. And, you go in and you just start to kind of roam the first floor, where you're kind of going past the potions classroom, and you hear kind of elves and other creatures behind the door in the kitchen, making things for the castle. You go past the mirror and all those other sculptures that are down there, and you're just like, oh my goodness, I'm in Hogwarts Castle. Then you pop out and you're in the greenhouse. There you go.
The worst area of that attraction.
Yeah, it's and that's one of those places where I look and I go, even though it's not the most immersive of the areas, it's a very smart way that they knew, like, okay, well, we have to hold capacity for this attraction. It's going to be pulling in X amount of numbers or an hour. So we have to hold a ton of people. And how do we do it? We put it in this giant greenhouse in the middle of Florida. But it definitely does that job of like, all right, how do you do an extended queue basically outside? But then once you get to the end there, and then you get that shot of I can't remember. This goes to show my little bit of a lack of knowledge in Potter.
I don't know whether he actually has a name.
That whatever that gold sculpture thing is at the end of the hallway.
Yeah, it's the founder of Hogwarts. I don't think he actually has a name.
Yeah, he's standing there, and the architect of Hogwarts is there, and you see the big winged horse thing.
It's a griffin, isn't it, at the bottom? No, that's the is it a griffin?
It's
a Dumbledore's office, yes.
Yeah, and you see that, and you're like, okay, again, it's that weenie that's pulling you in. But there, it's like, you've got the windows that kind of are showing the darker sky outside, and kind of setting the mood of like, okay, I'm in the castle now, and you're walking through the halls, and then you see, like, the first time I saw those moving pictures, it was the coolest thing. Like, you kind of get how it's done, but you don't care.
Yeah.
It's again one of those things of like, that thing is talking to me. It's plain. It's exactly what you would expect it would look like if you were a student in Hogwarts. And then I think that was really one of the first times too that we got just a lot of the Musion technology between Dumbledore and then the trio in the Defense Against the Dark Arts classroom. I think it's faded a little bit over time, but I remember just looking at that being like, is that Daniel Radcliffe and Emma Watson? Are they like, it just was so believable, and you add a little bit of those practical effects, especially in the Defense Against the Dark Arts classroom, where the door opens and you kind of hear them walking, and then the door closes. It just adds a little bit more of that believability when it snows or the thunder happens. I guess where to kind of segue into that is, this was also one of the first times really like an immersive queue became a thing in in the fan base, and even in designers' dictionary. We got very immersive queues and things like Indiana Jones and Disneyland, and sure, those were fantastic in their own right, but this hit on a whole nother level of like this. The attraction itself, there's a reason why they have the walkthrough tour of the castle, that you don't even have to ride the ride.
Yeah, they don't anymore, unfortunately.
Oh, they don't?
No. They took the castle tour line out once they added Express.
Oh, well, now that makes me very sad.
I know. That's how the first time we ever did Forbidden Journey, we did the castle tour line, and it was amazing.
Oh, no. Okay. Well, when they did the castle tour, but at the same time, it allowed that experience of like, I just want to see and kind of just walk through the halls of Hogwarts. And I guess you could technically still do your own castle tour. You just hit the exit before you get on the attraction itself. But yeah, I think there's like, it's something to be said. And obviously that's inspired. I think one of the most spectacular queues is the Flight of Passage queue at Pandora. And in that sense, that's a storytelling that's, being told from start to finish of how the research base got created in the mountains of Pandora. It kind of shows you a little bit of the damage that was done by the old mining company that was there, and so on. And there's just a linear story that like the queues now are becoming attractions unto themselves. Yes. You can now hang out on the Millennium Falcon before you get on the ride. That's like, a dream come true for Star Wars fans, and that's the equivalent really of being in Hogwarts Castle. It's that like, just iconic thing you've seen for years on the big screen or read in books, and now it's real, and it's everything you wanted it to be. And that's when that queue is just spectacular. And obviously you have animatronic in the Sorting Hat giving you the safety spiel, which is perfect.
Yeah, it really is.
And then really, like, you get to the meat of the attraction. Like, you're going to get on a robotic arm. And if I remember correctly, I don't really think there was an attraction that used the KUKA technology prior to this.
No, I think if I remember rightly, when Forbidden Journey was created, they had the sole rights to use the KUKA arm.
I believe so. And I think that's what was like, okay, I don't even know what this thing is. I didn't know the intensity level of it. I brought my mom on it, not knowing that she doesn't do well with those things.
Oh,
and
no.
very apologetic to her afterwards, but she loved it, just for what it was. But I don't think she's ridden it since, since opening day. But yeah, like, you know, you're going to get on this really crazy robotic arm, and it's going to make you feel like you're flying unlike anything has made you feel like you were flying before. And you're going to get thrown in the face of dragons and spiders and a whomping willow. And you have those transitions between the carousel of screens in and out of screen technology and the scenic elements in front of you. It's this blend of the two technologies just so seamlessly. One of my honorable mentions, and I had it on the list, honestly, until about 5 minutes before we recorded, which was Spider-Man. That is undoubtedly also another impactful attraction, but it's that same thing of here's something happening on a screen, and then, you know, we're going to pull out of it, and then boom, here's a blast of fire that is just really making this feel real. It's not that I'm just watching a movie screen as I'm in a vehicle that's shaking me around. Like this is tangible again. And I think that's just what makes that ride so special. Is it's not just me floating on a broomstick or a floating bench, I should say, around the castle, and then being thrown into one, scene to another, just from screen to screen to screen, similar, to something like Gringotts. And I adore Gringotts. I think that's a fantastic ride, with obviously flaws.
Yes.
But it definitely, I think, has some just really awesome stuff. Again, a brilliant queue. But it really just, that ride set the tone for the industry and became another player in Universal, in the what began the theme park rewards. Really, we don't get all the stuff that we've gotten to this day without looking to Harry Potter, without it. Disneyland set the standard of, okay, this is the beginning of a new form of entertainment, and from then I tell people, theme parks have not evolved a ton since Disneyland opened, or even Knott's Berry Farm opened. It's a very slow to revolutionize kind of industry. Obviously, we're kind of now in this renaissance. We had the renaissance of animation in the 90s and the late 80s. We're by all means in the middle of the renaissance of theme park design right now. We look at things again with Rise of the Resistance, and you get Flight of Passage, and you get Gringotts, and Flight or Forbidden Journey. Obviously, you get all of these things that each time are trying to push the boundaries of what immersiveness is and interactivity is on a story-based attraction. It just continues to push, and we haven't, I don't think, seen an advancement in the industry like we have in the last 9 years, basically. And hopefully it continues going from there, as long as we keep getting some real cool stuff from both Disney and Universal and other players out there. As we continue to advance the industry, like Forbidden Journey and like all the other lands out there have done in the past, I think we're just at the very beginning of what we can do, because these companies are not going to stop until as long as people keep showing up and paying the ticket price. We might think Harry Potter and Star Wars and Pandora are incredible lands. We ain't seen nothing yet. We've got a whole nother park on the horizon in Orlando for Universal,
which is so exciting.
Yeah, it should be incredible. And on top of that, let's be real, Disney's not going to sit by and just let Universal open a whole park. Whether Disney opens a park or not, who knows? But they're not going to go quietly into that good night. They're gonna keep just one-upping each other. And for me, as somebody working in the industry, I love it because it keeps paying the bills. And as a fan of the industry, and for everybody out there, we all get the coolest stuff.
Yeah.
So we all win, and I think it really all comes back to Harry Potter really kicked that off for all of us. And just that kind of technology that's used there. I cannot wait to see what comes down the line from everything else. And even on top of that, just regardless of other theme park lands, we got just some really cool other Harry Potter stuff. We got like Hagrid's this summer. Shout out to my friends that worked on Hagrid's this summer. Like, what a ride that thing is. And, we don't get all that without this stuff. So, I think that's my long-winded summary of Forbidden Journey and really Hogsmeade as a whole.
Yes.
And
you can't talk about one without the other, I don't think. Because especially like you mentioned Hagrid's there. Hagrid is an amazing ride, but it also makes Hogsmeade an even bigger, more immersive land in itself. It really adds to that whole area. I love Diagon Alley, but to me, Hogsmeade is still my favourite Wizarding World area.
Yeah, I have memories of when I moved out to Los Angeles before I was working for Universal out there. At the time, Harry Potter or Wizarding World of Harry Potter was about to open in Hollywood, if I remember correctly. And myself and a few friends that were out there, we bought annual passes, and we were there every day the weekend that it soft opened, and we just plopped a little spot in the little back patio outside of Three Broomsticks. Yep. And we would just, no one was at that time. Universal Hollywood was a little slow still, but then this, put them on the map to be a player in the industry. But it just was there's something so peaceful of just sitting back there with a beer or a hot or a butter beer of some sort, and you're just sitting out there and you're just taking in that view of Hogwarts Castle, and it's just it transports you to just a whole nother world. And yeah, exactly. You get Hagrid's and Diagon Alley, and it's really just, obviously, as long as you have the park-to-park pass, you have just the biggest playground of Harry Potter stuff between all of those lands and the attractions that you really don't even need to leave the land if you wanted to. No. And you could just be immersed from park open to close. Definitely. In the world of Harry Potter. So that's definitely my big number one of what really influenced my career in theme park design.
Awesome. I think that's a pretty decent list.
I think so as well.
We've got some old school, some sort of mini old school, and then some kind of new.
Yeah, definitely. It was those. My list contained. I'll rattle off a few quick honorable mentions. I had Expedition Everest was on there, as that was something that was really one of the first projects I saw built from top to bottom. Yeah. Pirates, Indiana Jones. Star Tours to an extent, all those things really just, and even now, Meow Wolf out here in Santa Fe, just I've brought some friends that work in the industry, and they've come out to visit me since being out here, and I bet you if they were on here and asked the same questions, I would not be shocked if Meow Wolf popped up on a few people's lists, just of how different and unique of a themed experience it is to the industry, really.
Cool. Well, Justin, it's been an honor to speak to you. It's been really interesting. I love talking theme parks anyway, and it gets to step out of our comfort zone a little bit to talk about Disney a little bit. We don't mind it too much.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a nice little healthy blend. But as you can see, as much as I do love the Disney parks, the Universal ones seem to have a little bit more of an impact on me and how I've done some stuff. But thank you again for having me on. I love talking about theme parks any time of the day. It is, I eat, sleep, drink, and all the above it. But thank you again for having me on.
I think anybody who listened to you gushing about Hogsmeade will know how much you enjoy talking about theme parks.
I hope so.
My kindred spirit. Justin, it's been awesome. If you want to plug anything to our listeners, where they can follow you or catch up on what you're currently working on, please do so.
Sure. I am currently art director for a brand new exhibit experience immersive thing out in Denver for our company Meow Wolf. It'll be opening sometime soon. So keep an eye out on that. And if you want to follow along in my theme park nerdiness, you can find me at, I believe it's Justin_Martin23 on Twitter. And I'm usually on there and pretty active. And I always tell people as well, people that might be listening that are interested in getting into the industry of any sorts, feel free to reach out in any way. I'd be more than happy to chat. And thank you again for having me on.
Awesome. Cool. Right, well, that's going to wrap up another podcast. We will, of course, wrap up the show with another Universal Is, and this one comes from Adriana Ramon. And if you want to be involved, please send us your thoughts on what Universal is in 3 words or less to podcast@uuopodcast.com, and we will share them on the show. And Adriana says, Universal is my honeymoon destination.
Cut, print, that's a wrap for another episode of the Unofficial Universal Orlando podcast. Never miss a show by subscribing on Apple Podcasts and leave us a rating and review while you're there. Not an Apple user? You can listen on Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, iHeartRadio, or your podcatcher of choice. Email us any questions or comments to podcast@uuopodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, YouTube, Instagram, and Pinterest. Just search UUO Podcast. Keep up with the latest news, rumors, and updates on our blog at uuopodcast.com. Thanks for listening. See you next week.